Imagine walking through a city that has been frozen in time. The sounds of busy streets and lively neighborhoods are now just whispers of the past. In this movie, we look at the scary truth about American cities that have been forgotten. Buffalo. Buffalo ranked as the 8th biggest American city in 1900. It was situated at the Erie Canal's Great Lakes End, one of the busiest parts of the waterway. Buffalo boasted one of the biggest steel mills in the nation and massive grain milling plants due to its strategic position. During World War II, Buffalo and other northern industrial areas saw prosperity. Following World War II, factories started producing automobiles and other industrial items again. By the middle of the 1950s, the population had grown to almost 500,000. Today is only half that. Buffalo suffered permanent harm as a result of America's deindustrialization. Flint. GM was founded in Flint, a once important industrial city that entered receivership, which is the same as municipal bankruptcy, in 2002. Less than 100,000 people live in the city now, down from around 200,000 in 1960. A single sentence can sum up Flint's demise. Less than 8,000 people work for GM in Flint today compared to 80,000 in 1960. For many years, GM's Buick division was headquartered in Flint. However, in 1998, these operations were relocated to Detroit. Hartford. A city was formerly known as the Global Center for Insurance. The population of the city peaked at about 177,000 in 1950 and has since declined to 124,000. In addition to being a hub for insurance, Hartford was also home to several publishing and manufacturing companies. Due mostly to industry consolidation, Hartford lost some of its insurance companies when they relocated. 5 large financial companies have reduced staff numbers. Among them are Lincoln Financial, MassMutual, MetLife, Cigna, and possibly the most depressing of all, Cleveland. Cleveland's strategic location on Lake Erie allowed it to grow into a significant port and center for land transportation. The city was home to several of the biggest rubber corporations in the world, as well as other manufacturers for the steel and automotive industries. In 1950, Cleveland had 914,000 people. Today, the number is less than 480,000. Many of the region's major manufacturing enterprises have either downsized or departed due to the steel, rubber, and automotive sectors moving elsewhere, mostly to Japan. New Orleans. An unidentified photographer from New Orleans who was present at the celebration of Mardi Gras in the 1890s. Because of its location near the mouth of the Mississippi River, New Orleans has been considered one of the most important ports in the United States for more than 200 years. The city of New Orleans is still a significant port, despite the fact that a significant number of the occupations that were previously performed by humans have been taken over by machines. With the advent of modern transportation methods such as trucks, trains, and airplanes, a significant percentage of the commercial traffic that was formerly transported by river is now transferred in a more efficient manner. Additionally, the city had become the financial hub of the South as a result of the cotton and river trade. Cities in the South that were rapidly expanding, such as Atlanta, rose to prominence as financial hubs as their populations swelled. One of the areas that began to counteract the faltering commerce and banking industries was tourism, which emerged as one of the areas throughout the second half of the 20th century. Nevertheless, the city was harmed by the fact that it was largely submerged in water and by the fact that it was hit by a number of storms, the most notable of which being Hurricane Betsy in 1965. During the month of August in 2005, Hurricane Katrina made a near-fatal impact on the city. In the year that followed, the population dropped from 627,000 in 1960 to slightly more than 250,000 when compared to the previous year. A potential recovery from the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina is already being damaged by the oil disaster caused by BP. Detroit. In 1950, the motor metropolis had a population of about 1.9 million, making it the 7th largest metropolis in the United States. From the 1920s, when Henry Ford invented the assembly line and fixed a $5 daily pay, the population grew rapidly. Workers from the Midwest and the Deep South began to pour in. During World War II, the massive automakers transitioned into defense contractors. Following the war, the U.S. was able to use its plentiful natural resources to produce completed goods, which led to an expansion of the economy and the creation of the middle class in the country. This resulted in a boom for the auto industry. In the 1960s, American automakers controlled almost 90% of the domestic market, with General Motors controlling 50% of it. In the 1970s, the increase of Japanese imports signaled the beginning of Detroit's decline. Customers in the U.S. became more interested in high-mileage cars as a result of the Arab oil embargo. Before American Motors was acquired by Chrysler, the Big Three, formerly the Big Four, produced goods that people found tolerable. However, in the 1980s, superior Japanese automobiles started to appear on the market in large quantities. The Chapter 11 filings of GM and Chrysler represent the near-total destruction of Detroit's auto manufacturing base. Albany. Albany continues to serve as the capital of New York State. The city was once considered to be one of the largest inland ports in the world due to its location and close proximity to the point where the Hudson River meets the Erie Canal. Because of this, it was able to develop into an important hub for completing iron and lumber enterprises. The influence that politicians have in the region may have been responsible for the establishment of a large number of educational institutions and colleges in the city. The expansion of the city's population, which ultimately reached 134,000 in 1950, was mostly attributable to the manufacturing sector. There are currently fewer than 95,000 of them. Although higher education institutions in the region have begun to contribute to Albany's development as a hub for the biotechnology and information technology sectors, the contributions that these institutions have made have not been significant enough to reverse the economic downturn that the city has been experiencing since the 1960s. Atlantic City. The city of Atlantic City, which is today mostly recognized for its gambling sector, was on the point of collapse prior to the passage of regulations that allowed gaming enterprises to operate their operations there. The city was developed as a tourist attraction in the 1880s, and during that time period, a number of huge hotels were built there. Atlantic City is a well-liked location for conventions and trade shows because of the flourishing hotel industry that the city possesses. 1964 was the year when it played host to the Democratic National Convention. The accessibility of low-cost air travel to southern resort destinations such as Florida was the first element that significantly diminished the city's attraction to individuals who were interested in visiting. The amount of time it would take for travelers to drive to Atlantic City is less than the amount of time it would take them to fly from New York to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach. Second, because Las Vegas has become the heart of gaming on a global scale, it has become the ideal place for numerous conventions around the world. Although Atlantic City entered the gaming industry in 1978, it was already too late to be successful. Allentown. In the middle of the 20th century, this Pennsylvanian city enjoyed two benefits: railroads that transported cargo from the Midwest to the eastern seaboard via Pennsylvania and New Jersey had a good location for it. Similar to Pittsburgh to the west and Bethlehem to the east, it was a significant refiner and manufacturing hub due to its close proximity to iron ore. Similar to numerous other manufacturing hubs in the Northeast, Allentown observed that its primary commodity, steel, was being manufactured in Japan at a decreasing cost and increasing volume. Houston. By the turn of the century, this city in Texas was one of the most important ports in the United States. A natural calamity that was among the worst in the history of the United States also occurred there. Between 6,000 and 8,000 people lost their lives as a result of a hurricane in the year 1900. In the decades that followed the hurricane, Galveston became a well-liked tourist destination due to its closeness to a number of major towns in Texas, as well as its location on the Gulf of Mexico. During the Second World War, Galveston played a vital role as a hub for the recruitment of military personnel. Simply said, there is only one explanation for the collapse of Galveston. As a result, it had become the southern counterpart of the biblical city of Sodom and Gomorrah. There was a substantial gambling industry there that functioned primarily illegally and was managed by criminals. The late 1950s saw the beginning of a successful fight against local organized crime that was initiated by state authorities in Texas. Despite the existence of the controlled tourism business, the illegal enterprise was unable to be replaced. Both the port and the hospitality industries in Galveston had begun to expand prior to the devastation caused by Hurricane Ike in 2008. Both of these industries were utterly decimated. Not only did the tragedy inflict significant damage to the city's revenue base, but it also generated additional setbacks for the tourism industry. If you found these stories of forgotten American cities intriguing and want more insights into history and urban exploration, make sure to subscribe to our channel.